I found my wife's secret bank account linked to her affair with my best friend. She stole over $200, $0 from our joint account, and now she's claiming half of our house in a bitter court battle. But I just discovered she's been secretly planning to leave me for him all along. I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. The most unexpected thing happened. My wife, Lisa, who always seemed so perfect, turned out to be a complete liar and cheat. And not just that, she was sleeping with my best friend, Mark. Yeah, I know it sounds like a soap opera, but this is real life. It all unraveled so fast, I still can't believe I missed the signs for so long. It started a few months ago when I noticed she was being weird about money. She'd hide her phone more, get defensive when I asked about her bank accounts, and started insisting she needed more privacy. I didn't think much of it at first. We've always had a decent marriage, nothing spectacular but stable, 2 kids, a house, and a lot of shared dreams. But then I stumbled on something that changed everything. One night I was checking our joint bank account, just routine, and noticed a transfer I didn't recognize. It was for over $200, $0. That's a lot of money, especially since we never discussed anything close to that. At first, I thought maybe a mistake or some kind of investment, but then I saw it linked to a private account under Lisa's name. An account I'd never seen before. My heart started pounding. I immediately looked at the transactions, and what I found was worse than I could have imagined. There were withdrawals, transfers, and payments to different accounts, but the most shocking thing was a recurring payment to someone named Mark. I knew Mark was my best friend's name. Mark, my best friend since college. The connection hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe it. My wife had been secretly siphoning money from our joint account into her own, and she was funneling it to someone I trusted. I felt sick. My mind raced, trying to piece together how long this had been going on, how many lies I'd been living with. I couldn't believe Lisa, my wife, who always played the innocent victim, had been secretly stealing from us and hiding her affair with Mark. I looked at the phone bill, the texts, the emails. Sure enough, I found a trail of messages that confirmed what I suspected. She'd been seeing Mark for months, probably longer. The worst part, she lied through her teeth when I confronted her about the money. Said she had no idea what I was talking about, that I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. I was furious but also hurt beyond words. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that, steal our money and then lie about it? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and deeply stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. I was blindsided. I'd trusted her with everything, our kids, our home, my life. And she'd been planning her escape with my best friend all along. That realization hit me hard. It was like my whole world was crashing down around me. The worst part, I knew she was planning to leave. I found out she had been secretly looking for apartments, talking about starting fresh without me. All the while, pretending everything was fine. I felt like a fool for not noticing sooner, for not seeing the subtle clues. She'd been bitchy lately, snapping at me over nothing, acting like I was the problem, but I see now she was just hiding her true intentions. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling numb and enraged at the same time. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how. Part of me wanted to explode, to call her out in front of everyone. But another part just wanted to understand why she'd done this, why she'd betrayed everything we had. I was stuck in this terrible limbo, angry at her, hurt by her lies, and betrayed by someone I thought was my best friend. This was just the beginning. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew my life was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept replaying everything I'd discovered: the bank account, the messages, the money gone, her plans to leave. I couldn't believe she'd been so manipulative, so deceitful. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and confusion. How could Lisa, my wife, who I'd trusted for over 10 years, do this to me, to us? I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed to confront her face to face, get some answers, and figure out what the hell was going on. I waited until she was home from work, trying to keep my cool. When she finally walked through the door, I was already waiting in the living room, my arms crossed, staring her down. "Lisa," I said, voice low but steady, "we need to talk. I know about the money, I know about Mark, and I know you've been lying to me for months." Her face froze for a second, then she put on that fake, bitchy smile she always used when she knew she was in trouble. "Oh, come on, Ryan," she shot back, flipping her hair. "You're overreacting. You always do this, blow things out of proportion. You're just paranoid." Her tone was dismissive, but I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. She knew I had the evidence and she was trying to brush it off like it was nothing. "No, Lisa," I said, stepping closer. "I found your secret account. Over $200, $0 missing. And those texts, you're sleeping with Mark. How long has this been going on? How long have you been stealing from us?" Her eyes widened for a brief second, then she scoffed. "Stealing? Ryan, you're crazy. That account, it's nothing. I was just saving for a trip we talked about. And Mark, he's just a friend. You're always accusing me of things. Maybe you're the one cheating." Her voice was rising, her face turning red. She was lying, I knew it, but her denial only fueled my anger. "I saw the messages," I said. "You've been planning to leave me for Mark for months. I found the apartment you were looking at online. You're trying to take everything from me, our house, our life, everything we built." Her eyes darted away, then she looked at me with that bitchy sneer. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You're just jealous. Mark and I have nothing going on. You're just insecure. Besides, I deserve half of everything because I helped build this house, remember? Without me, none of this would exist." Her words cut deep. She was trying to turn it around, make it sound like I was the bad guy. But I knew better. I knew the truth. As she kept lying, I felt my blood boiling. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I was done with her lies and betrayal. She started crying, but it wasn't genuine. It was fake tears, a performance. She was good at that, making herself the victim. I could see right through her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. The woman I loved, the woman I thought was my partner, had been betraying me for months. Not only that, but she was planning to leave me for Mark, who, by the way, was supposed to be my best friend. I felt so stupid for trusting them, for ignoring the signs. I started to think about what I should do next. I knew I couldn't just let her walk away with everything. She was trying to claim half the house, and honestly, I was ready to fight her in court if I had to. But more than that, I wanted her to understand that she couldn't get away with this, stealing from us, lying, and then turning around and playing the victim. I also wondered how long Mark had been in on it. Had he known about the money? Had he helped her plan this? I couldn't believe my best friend would do something so low. It felt like my whole world was crumbling. I was hurt, angry, and embarrassed. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted her? In the end, I knew I had to be smart. I started gathering more evidence, screenshots, bank statements, anything that could prove her betrayal. I also started thinking about who I could talk to, lawyers, friends, anyone who could help me navigate this mess. Because at this point I realized I was in a war and I wasn't going down without a fight. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind was racing with plans, with anger, with the need for revenge. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without a price. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did, one way or another. The next few days turned into a whirlwind of planning and shock. I stayed up late every night going over everything I found, trying to make sense of how Lisa managed to pull this off without me noticing sooner. The thing that kept hitting me was how smooth she'd been, so bitchy, so dismissive, always acting like I was paranoid. She'd lie with such ease, it was like she'd been rehearsing her whole life. I started talking to a lawyer just to get a sense of my options. The more I dug, the more I realized she was trying to take half the house, claiming she contributed equally, even though I knew she hadn't worked a real job in years. She stayed home, sure, but I paid all the bills, managed the investments, and kept everything afloat. She'd been pocketing our money, planning her escape, and now she was trying to take what wasn't hers. I found out she had been secretly planning her departure for months. I caught her on a flight booking app, looking at flights to some city I'd never even heard of, just a few days after I discovered her affair. She'd been talking about starting fresh, as if she was just tired of the marriage, but I knew better. She was leaving me for Mark, and she'd been lying to me the whole time. One day, I decided I'd had enough. I confronted her again, this time more directly. I told her I knew about the affair, the money, everything. I told her I had all the evidence and that I wasn't going to let her walk away with my house, my money, or my dignity. Her bitchy smirk turned into a look of panic. She tried to deny it all, but it was pointless. I had her cornered. "You think you can lie your way out of this?" I asked her, voice cold. "I know everything. The money, the affair, the plan to leave. You're not getting a dime of what's ours, Lisa. You've been caught red-handed." Her eyes flashed with anger and she snapped back, "You're just jealous. Mark and I have nothing going on. You're just insecure and controlling." She was trying to gaslight me again, as if her cheating and theft were all in my head, but I wasn't falling for it. I told her I was going to take her to court. I would fight her for custody of the kids, the house, and the money she'd stolen. I wanted her to understand that she couldn't just cheat, steal, and then expect to walk away scot-free. I was done playing nice. The betrayal had gone too far. She started crying, fake tears, I knew, and said she loved me, that she made a mistake, that she was sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it anymore. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that she'd been sleeping around, stealing from us, and planning her escape behind my back. I told her I didn't believe her, and I was going to do everything I could to make sure she paid for what she'd done. That day, I contacted a forensic accountant and a private investigator. I wanted to get concrete proof of her financial lies and her affair with Mark. I needed hard evidence, not just my suspicions. I also called my brother, who's a lawyer, to get advice on how to handle the legal side of things. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, acting like the victim, claiming I was trying to ruin her, saying I was overreacting. But I could see through her. Her bitchy attitude, the way she dismissed my concerns, the way she kept lying, it all confirmed she was a master manipulator. I realized she'd been playing me for months, maybe even longer. The biggest shock came when I found out she'd already moved some of her stuff out of the house, little things here and there, trying to prepare for her escape. I felt a cold surge of rage. She was planning to leave me, take everything, and I was just supposed to sit back and accept it. No way. I was going to fight her for every inch, for every dollar, for my dignity. I also started to think about what this all meant for my future. I trusted her, loved her, and now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a thief, and a cheater. It hurt more than I can say, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her win, not without a fight. I had to stand up for myself, for my kids, and for the life I believed I deserved. This whole mess is still unfolding, but one thing's clear: I'm not the same man I was a few weeks ago. I'm angry, betrayed, but also more determined than ever. I've learned that sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be your biggest enemies. And when that happens, you better be ready to fight for what's yours. After I gathered all the evidence, I knew I had to act fast. Lisa's lies were piling up, and her plans to leave the house with Mark's support were becoming more concrete by the day. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she'd done. I reached out to the lawyer I'd been talking to, and we started preparing for a legal battle. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I hired a private investigator to follow Lisa and Mark. I wanted to see if they were still meeting, if they had more plans to run off together. What I found confirmed my worst fears. They'd been sneaking around, meeting in secret spots, and Lisa was still trying to hide her tracks. She'd even made arrangements to rent a new place in the city, just in case I found out and pushed back. One evening, I caught her trying to hide her phone. She was acting even more bitchy, snapping at me over small things, trying to dismiss my concerns. But I wasn't letting her get away with it anymore. I told her I knew what she was doing, that I had proof of her affair, and that I was going to expose everything in court. Her face went pale for a second, then she sneered. "Oh, Ryan, you're just jealous," she spat. "You're insecure because Mark is better than you. You're so controlling, it's no wonder I wanted out." Her words were as manipulative as ever, but I saw through her. I knew she was trying to turn everything around, make me look like the bad guy. I responded calmly but firmly. "Lisa, I don't care what you say anymore. You've been lying, stealing, and planning to leave me for months. You think you can just walk away with half of everything? Not a chance. I'm going to fight for my rights and for my kids, and I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." Her bitchy attitude only intensified. She started crying fake tears, claiming she loved me, that she made a terrible mistake. But I knew better. That act was just her way of trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty. I was done feeling guilty. I was done feeling hurt. I knew I had to stand my ground no matter how much it hurt. The next step was to file for a court order. I wanted to freeze her assets, prevent her from selling the house, and make sure she couldn't take the kids away without my consent. I also alerted the bank about the suspicious account and the stolen money. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Lisa had planned this entire betrayal. She'd been living a double life, lying to me every step of the way. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt like I was walking through a fog of betrayal and anger. Every time I saw her bitchy smirk or heard her lie so convincingly, I felt my stomach turn. But I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her manipulate me into giving up or backing down. This was about justice, getting back what's mine and making her pay for the damage she caused. I also started thinking about the future. I'd have to rebuild my life from the ground up. The house, which I had worked so hard for, was now a battleground. My kids were confused, and I had to be there for them, even as I was falling apart inside. I promised myself I wouldn't let her destroy everything I cared about. I'd fight for my rights, for my dignity, and for the truth. The whole situation was spiraling out of control, but I refused to back down. I knew I'd need to be strategic, patient, and relentless. Lisa's bitchy, manipulative attitude was just a mask. I saw through her now, and I was ready for whatever came next. I was more determined than ever to make sure she paid for what she'd done, and to protect what was left of my life. The legal battle was in full swing now, and I could feel the pressure mounting. Lisa's lawyer was trying to spin everything in her favor, claiming she deserved half the house because she'd contributed to building our life, even though I knew she hadn't worked or earned a dime in years. She was desperate to hold onto her share, to keep her financial security, and to run off with Mark without facing the consequences of her lies and theft. Meanwhile, I kept working with my lawyer to gather every shred of evidence I could find. The forensic accountant uncovered more disturbing details. Lisa had transferred even larger sums of money to her secret accounts, and there were payments to Mark that hadn't shown up in the initial transactions. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for a long time, using our joint funds to finance her betrayal. One day, I received a court subpoena for her phone records. I felt like my entire world was collapsing deeper into chaos. When the records arrived, I saw the messages, a trail of texts, flirtations, and plans to meet up in secret. She'd been lying to me every single day, pretending to be the loving wife, while secretly planning her new life with Mark. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. Her bitchy attitude didn't stop there. At court hearings, she arrived dressed to impress, acting innocent and fragile, but I saw right through her. Her tears, her fake concern. She was just trying to manipulate the judge to win sympathy. But I had the evidence, and I was prepared to fight for what was rightfully mine. One of the most shocking moments was when her own words betrayed her. During a recorded phone call, she told Mark she was done pretending, and that she was getting out of this marriage no matter what. Hearing her own voice admit she'd been planning her departure all along was a punch to the stomach. It confirmed everything I'd suspected, that she'd been lying, stealing, and scheming behind my back. The court hearings were intense. I sat there listening as her lawyer argued that she deserved half the house because she contributed equally. A lie, considering she hadn't worked for years. I argued back, presenting all the evidence of her affair, her theft, and her plans to leave. I could see the judge was starting to see through her act. It was clear she was trying to manipulate the system, but I was determined to expose her. Throughout all this, I felt a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. Anger because she'd betrayed me so deeply, sadness because I still loved her even after everything, and relief because I finally had proof, a chance to fight back and get justice. I realized that this experience was revealing who she truly was, bitchy, manipulative, and utterly selfish. The emotional toll was immense. Every day felt like walking through a battlefield. I'd wake up with a knot in my stomach, knowing I had to face her lies again. I'd look at my kids and try to hold it together, knowing they didn't understand why their mother was acting so cold and distant. I promised myself I'd do whatever it took to protect them and to reclaim what was stolen from us. In the middle of all this chaos, I also started to reflect on my own life. I'd trusted Lisa for so long, blind to her true nature. I'd let her manipulate me, let her steal from us, and let her plan her escape. But I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to win this fight, not just for my house or money, but for my dignity and my future. Every day I became more resolute. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was tired of her bitchy attitude, her lies, and her betrayal. I was ready to see this through, no matter how painful it was. I had to stay strong for myself, for my kids, and for the truth. Whatever the court decided, I knew one thing: I wasn't going down without a fight. The final court date arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. All the evidence I'd gathered, the bank statements, the text messages, the recordings, laid out in front of the judge. Lisa's lawyer was trying to spin her story, claiming she deserved half the house because she'd contributed emotionally and by raising the kids, even though it was clear she'd been plotting her escape for months. She sat there, acting fragile and innocent, but I saw through her act every single time. When it was my turn, I laid everything out. How she'd stolen over $200, $0 from our joint account, how she'd been sleeping with Mark, and how she had been planning to leave me all along. I told the judge about her attempts to hide her affair, the secret accounts, and the new apartment she was trying to rent. I explained how she'd manipulated me with her bitchy attitude, her fake tears, and her constant lies. I was raw, honest, and relentless. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning. It was obvious she was starting to see through Lisa's manipulations. When the judge asked Lisa directly about her actions, her bitchy facade cracked for a moment. She hesitated, then lied again, but I had the evidence, proof of her affair, her financial theft, her plans to leave, and it was enough to sway the court. In the end, the judge awarded me full custody of the kids, ordered Lisa to pay back the stolen money, and granted me sole ownership of the house. Lisa's attempts to claim half were dismissed outright. She looked furious, her bitchy smirk replaced with a grimace of defeat. She knew she'd been caught, and she knew she had lost. After the court, I felt a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. It was over, at least legally, but the emotional scars remained. I watched as Lisa stormed out, her bitchy attitude finally giving way to pure anger. Mark was nowhere to be seen, probably too scared to show his face now that everything was out in the open. I took a deep breath and looked at my kids. They were confused but safe. I promised myself I'd do everything I could to rebuild our lives, to create a future where betrayal and lies didn't rule. I realized I'd learned a lot through this nightmare, about trust, about myself, about the importance of vigilance. I'd been naive, but I wasn't anymore. From now on, I would focus on healing, on making sure my children knew they were loved and protected. I'd cut out the toxic people, rebuild my confidence, and move forward. The betrayal was a heavy blow, but it also made me stronger. I didn't need her bitchy attitude, her lies, or her manipulations. I'd take back my life piece by piece, and I'd never let anyone do this to me again. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown from this experience. It's been one of the toughest chapters of my life, but I'm finally free. Free from her lies, her betrayal, and her manipulations. I've learned that sometimes the person you trust the most can turn out to be your biggest enemy. And when that happens, you have to fight tooth and nail to reclaim what's yours. I did that, and I'll keep doing it for me and for my kids.